Every empire learns the same lesson eventually, that the moment you believe you control all the variables, that you understand all the capabilities, that you can predict all the responses, that's precisely when your assumptions shatter and the world changes overnight. At 3:47 a.m. Tehran time on March 15, 2026, a targeted drone strike eliminated General Hassan Bagheri, Iran's deputy chief of general staff and architect of the Islamic Republic's asymmetric warfare strategy for over 2 decades. Within 60 minutes of the strike, Tehran's response had shocked intelligence agencies across 4 nations. Not because of its scale, not because of its brutality, but because it revealed capabilities that Western intelligence believed Iran wouldn't possess for years. The assassination was designed to provoke a predictable Iranian response that would justify broader military intervention. Instead, it exposed that Iran had been playing a fundamentally different game than anyone realized. Understanding what happened in that 60-minute window, and why 4 countries are now scrambling to reassess everything they thought they knew about Iranian capabilities, reveals that the Middle East just experienced its most significant power shift since 1979. The target, General Hassan Bagheri. General Hassan Bagheri wasn't just another military commander. He represented 30 years of Iranian strategic thinking about asymmetric warfare, technological development, and regional power projection. As Deputy Chief of General Staff for Coordination, Bagheri oversaw Iran's most sensitive military programs, ballistic missile development, cyber warfare capabilities, drone technology advancement, and coordination with regional proxy forces across Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. Western intelligence agencies had tracked Bagheri for decades as the operational architect of Iran's axis of resistance strategy that extended Iranian influence from Tehran to the Mediterranean Sea without deploying conventional military forces outside Iranian borders. The strike occurred during Bagheri's inspection of a classified military facility near Isfahan, Iran's nuclear enrichment hub. The timing and location were deliberate. Maximum symbolic impact combined with operational disruption of Iran's most sensitive nuclear and military programs. But the strategic calculation proved fundamentally flawed, because Iran's response revealed that Western assumptions about Iranian capabilities, strategic priorities, and technological development had been systematically wrong for years. The 60-minute response, 4 phases of shock. Phase 1, immediate retaliation, 0 to 15 minutes. Within 15 minutes of Bagheri's confirmed death, Iranian forces launched coordinated missile strikes against military targets in 3 countries simultaneously. Israeli air defense systems in the Golan Heights faced sustained barrage of precision-guided missiles that penetrated Iron Dome coverage and struck command facilities that intelligence sources had considered invulnerable to Iranian conventional weapons. U.S. military installations in Syria and Iraq came under attack from Iranian proxy forces, using weapon systems that demonstrated accuracy and lethality far beyond previous capabilities. Saudi Arabia's eastern oil infrastructure faced drone swarms that overwhelmed defensive systems and struck critical pumping stations, causing immediate production disruptions affecting global oil markets. The coordination across multiple theaters within 15 minutes demonstrated command and control capabilities that Western intelligence had severely underestimated. Phase 2, technological revelation, 15-30 minutes. Between 15 and 30 minutes after Bagheri's death, Iranian forces demonstrated technological capabilities that forced immediate reassessment of the Islamic Republic's military development programs. Hypersonic missiles struck targets in Israel with flight times that made interception mathematically impossible using current defensive technology. The missiles demonstrated maneuvering capabilities during terminal approach that indicated advanced guidance systems previously unknown to Western intelligence. Cyber warfare attacks disabled communication systems across U.S. and allied facilities in the region, demonstrating penetration of networks that had been considered secure against Iranian capabilities. Electronic warfare systems jammed GPS, satellite communications, and radar systems across a radius extending from eastern Mediterranean to the Persian Gulf, creating temporary communication blackouts that prevented coordinated defensive responses. Phase 3, economic warfare, 30 to 45 minutes. Between 30 and 45 minutes after the strike, Iran activated economic warfare capabilities that immediately affected global energy markets and international financial systems. The Islamic Republic announced immediate withdrawal from all international nuclear monitoring agreements, effectively ending nuclear program transparency that had been maintained despite years of escalating sanctions. Iranian naval forces began implementing Strait of Hormuz closure procedures, not through physical blockade, but through declaration of active military zone requiring Iranian approval for commercial transit. Revolutionary Guard forces announced activation of sleeping cyber warfare programs targeting Western financial institutions, energy infrastructure, and transportation systems worldwide. Phase 4, strategic surprise, 45-60 minutes. The final 15 minutes contained the elements that shocked intelligence agencies across 4 nations and forced fundamental reassessment of regional strategic balance. Iran announced that its nuclear program had achieved uranium enrichment levels of 90% purity at undisclosed facilities, placing weaponization within weeks rather than months or years as Western intelligence had projected. Revolutionary Guard Aerospace Forces revealed successful testing of intercontinental ballistic missile technology capable of reaching European targets, fundamentally altering Iranian strategic reach beyond the Middle East. Iranian leadership announced formal military alliance with Russia and China, including nuclear technology sharing agreements that would accelerate weapons development while providing security guarantees against regime change operations. The four nations shock. Intelligence failure. Exposed United States, the superpower's blindness. American intelligence agencies faced the most comprehensive intelligence failure since September 11, 2001. 20 years of satellite surveillance, signals intelligence, and covert operations had failed to detect Iranian technological advancement that placed the Islamic Republic within weeks of nuclear weapons capability. CIA assessments presented to Congress as recently as February 2026 had projected Iranian nuclear weaponization timeline at 1824 months under accelerated development scenarios. Iran's 90% enrichment announcement suggested those assessments were wrong by orders of magnitude. Pentagon strategic planning for Iranian military confrontation had been based on assumption of conventional missile technology that could be intercepted by Allied defensive systems. Hypersonic missile demonstration rendered existing defensive planning obsolete. Israel. The regional powers' miscalculation. Israeli intelligence services faced even more severe shock given their decades of focus on Iranian military development and nuclear program monitoring. Mossad operations inside Iran, considered among the world's most effective intelligence penetration programs, had failed to detect uranium enrichment facilities operating at weapons-grade levels for potentially months or years. Israeli military planning for Iranian nuclear program elimination had assumed sufficient warning time for preventive strikes before weaponization. Iran's announcement suggested that window had already closed without Israeli intelligence detection. Iron Dome effectiveness against Iranian precision missiles proved far lower than projected, raising questions about Israeli defensive capabilities against sustained Iranian military pressure. Saudi Arabia. The oil kingdom's vulnerability. Saudi intelligence coordination with Western agencies had failed to detect Iranian capability to strike Saudi oil infrastructure with precision that could severely damage global energy production. Saudi defensive investments in Patriot missile systems and other Western military technology proved inadequate against Iranian drone swarm attacks that overwhelmed defensive systems through numerical saturation. Economic warfare implications were immediate. Saudi oil production faced sustained threat from Iranian forces that could impose costs far exceeding any benefit from Begheri's elimination. UAE, the financial hub's exposure. UAE leadership faced recognition that their country's role as Middle Eastern financial center created systematic vulnerability to Iranian cyber warfare capabilities that could disrupt international financial flows. Dubai's position as regional trade hub created complex exposure to economic warfare that could damage UAE interests regardless of official government positions. Economic implications, the $200 dose oil reality. The 60-minute response immediately triggered economic consequences that extended far beyond regional conflict into global financial markets and energy systems. Oil markets opened Monday morning with prices gapping higher by $25 per barrel, as markets priced in potential supply disruption from 20% of global petroleum production flowing through the Strait of Hormuz. Shipping insurance rates for Persian Gulf transit spiked by 500% within hours, as commercial operators faced Iranian military zone declarations that make commercial shipping economically prohibitive. Currency markets experienced extreme volatility as Iranian threats to financial infrastructure raised systemic risk concerns about Western monetary systems' vulnerability to economic warfare attacks. Precious metals. Markets positioned for extended safe haven demand as regional conflict threatened to escalate beyond containable military confrontation into systematic economic warfare. The nuclear timeline, weeks, not years. Iran's announcement of 90% uranium enrichment represented the most significant nuclear proliferation development since North Korea's weapons testing program, but with implications that extend far beyond regional balance of power. Weapons-grade uranium requires 90% enrichment levels, meaning Iran's announcement placed the Islamic Republic within weeks of nuclear weapons capability rather than months or years as Western intelligence had projected. The enrichment breakthrough had apparently occurred at undisclosed facilities that had evaded detection by international monitoring systems, satellite surveillance, and human intelligence networks specifically designed to prevent Iranian nuclear weapons development. The nuclear timeline acceleration created immediate policy crisis for Western governments, whose Iranian strategy had been based on assumption of sufficient warning time for diplomatic resolution or military intervention before weaponization. The hypersonic reality. Defensive systems obsolete. Iranian hypersonic missile demonstration represented technological breakthrough that fundamentally altered regional military balance in ways that extend beyond Middle Eastern conflict dynamics. Hypersonic weapons travel at speeds exceeding Mach 5, with maneuvering capabilities during terminal approach that make interception mathematically impossible, using current defensive technology deployed by the United States and allied nations. Israeli Iron Dome systems, Saudi Patriot missiles, and U.S. THAAD defensive installations throughout the region became strategically obsolete overnight as Iranian hypersonic capability neutralized defensive advantages that had enabled Western military superiority for decades. The technological development suggested Iranian access to advanced materials, science, guidance systems, and propulsion technology that Western intelligence had assessed as beyond Iranian industrial capabilities for years. The strategic alliance, Russia, China, Iran. Axis. Iran's announcement of formal military alliance with Russia and China represented geopolitical realignment that extends far beyond Middle Eastern regional dynamics into global strategic competition between Western powers and emerging multipolar system. Nuclear technology sharing agreements between the three nations create systematic proliferation risk that could accelerate weapons development while providing security guarantees against Western regime change operations. The alliance structure suggests coordinated strategy for challenging Western hegemony through combined economic, military, and technological capabilities that individually weak nations could not achieve independently. The intelligence failure, systematic underestimation. The shock experienced by four nations' intelligence agencies revealed systematic failures in assessment, analysis, and operational security that extend beyond Iranian deception capabilities into fundamental problems with Western intelligence methods. Satellite surveillance programs designed to monitor Iranian nuclear and military development had been systematically evaded through operational security methods that prevented detection of critical technological advancement. Human intelligence networks inside Iran had failed to penetrate programs that represented Iran's most sensitive strategic capabilities, suggesting Iranian counterintelligence effectiveness that Western agencies had severely underestimated. The scale of intelligence failure raised questions about Western intelligence effectiveness across other strategic targets that may have similarly evaded detection while developing capabilities that challenge Western strategic assumptions. The 72-hour window, de-escalation or war. The immediate aftermath of Iran's 60-minute response created a 72-hour window during which regional dynamics could move toward controlled de-escalation or systematic warfare that reshapes Middle Eastern strategic balance permanently. De-escalation required immediate diplomatic engagement through intermediary nations capable of communicating with both Iranian leadership and Western governments, while regional tensions remained manageable. Escalation scenarios involved continued military provocations that could trigger Iranian implementation of threatened economic warfare capabilities, with consequences that extend far beyond regional conflict into global economic disruption. The 72-hour window represented a critical decision point where regional dynamics could stabilize through diplomatic recognition of changed strategic balance or escalate toward systematic warfare that no participant could fully control or predict. Historical parallel? The Cuban Missile Crisis model. Iran's 60-minute response created a strategic situation comparable to the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, where nuclear weapons development by a strategic adversary forced fundamental reassessment of acceptable risk levels and diplomatic solutions. Like the Soviet nuclear deployment in Cuba, Iranian weapons development represented an unacceptable threat that nonetheless required diplomatic rather than military resolution due to escalation risks that exceeded any strategic benefit. The intelligence failure regarding Iranian capabilities paralleled American intelligence surprise about Soviet nuclear deployment timing and operational security that evaded detection until strategic fait accompli had been achieved. Conclusion: the new Middle Eastern reality. Iran's 60-minute response to General Begi's assassination demonstrated that the Middle East had fundamentally changed in ways that Western intelligence agencies failed to detect until strategic transformation was complete. The Islamic Republic had achieved nuclear weapons threshold, hypersonic delivery systems, advanced cyber warfare capabilities, and international alliance relationships that neutralized Western conventional military advantages. Regional balance of power had shifted toward Iranian influence through strategic patience, technological development, and alliance building that occurred below Western intelligence detection thresholds, while maintaining operational security. The intelligence failure revealed systematic problems in Western assessment capabilities that extend beyond Iranian deception into fundamental questions about intelligence effectiveness against strategic competitors. The 60-minute sequence marked a historical transition point where Iranian strategic patience had achieved objective of neutralizing Western military pressure through technological advancement that changed regional power dynamics permanently. Iran's 60-minute response had succeeded in transforming tactical provocation into strategic victory that established the Islamic Republic as nuclear threshold power with regional influence, that Western military pressure could no longer effectively constrain. The shock experienced by four nations' intelligence agencies marked the end of Western strategic dominance in the Middle East and the beginning of a multipolar regional system where Iranian capabilities required diplomatic rather than military management